We're going to go ahead and call this Recreation Ad Hoc Committee to order December 29th at noon. Thank you guys all for being here. We'll want to welcome our committee members and our guests, and due to the holiday season, some vacation time and travel time, we do have some people who are absent today, but they do plan on being here at our next meeting. But welcome Coach Louis Alford, Commissioner Louis Alford, for being here. Mylan Blake, Jamie Kyle, Andy Lockhart, and Mayor Gary Davis as well for being here. And Grant, thank you for coming as well. We do have a few other members, Denny Collins, Bartley Norton, and Greg Phillips, who are also on this committee. But like I said, they are out of town for this week. Moving to the second part of our agenda is the resolution to establish the ad hoc committee. It was voted on by the full commission and signed by the chairman, Tom Cry, Donna Simpson, and also Gary Davis as well. I do want to take the time to read this ad hoc resolution so that all of us here can know exactly what it is. The resolution to create that Recreation Ad Hoc Committee, whereas the Bradley County Commission recognizes the significance of health and mental benefits of recreation and fitness opportunities, whereas the Bradley County Commission is desirous of expanding recreational and fitness opportunities for all members of our community, and where the Bradley County Commission respects and appreciates the efforts and advisory authority of the Parks and Recreation and Conservation Advisory Committee. And whereas the Bradley County Commission deems it appropriate to establish a Recreation Ad Hoc Committee to determine how Bradley County can increase activities, create more participation, better equip facilities, and increase the revenue of Bradley County Parks and Recreation Department, not including decisions regarding sports rules, rulings, or statutes about players or coach personnel, or scheduling these items. Now be it resolved that the Bradley County Commission, meeting in a regular session on the 17th of October, the Recreation Ad Hoc Committee shall be created and determine how Bradley County can increase activities, create more participation, better equip facilities, and increase the revenue of Bradley County Parks and Rec, not including the decisions of the sports rulings, ruling of statutes, players, coaches, personnel, or scheduling these items. Be it further resolved, and this is really the important part that we'll go over again, that the Recreation Ad Hoc Committee shall have the responsibility to determine the capacity and standards of fields, gyms, and other recreation facilities in Bradley County, review current recreation offerings and the needs for new recreational opportunities in Bradley County, create a 2, 5, and 10-year plan of action for growing the offerings of the Bradley County Rec Department, the facilities, and overall recreation department's investment in Bradley County, determine new revenue streams and tax growth opportunities for the Recreation Department, bring new events to Bradley County, and explore and find potential funding opportunities such as grants, sponsorships, private donations for new facilities, events, and offerings. We'll kind of just leave that right there as the Recreation Ad Hoc Committee. To go over that last part again, the scope of this committee is not to come in and change everything that Andy and the mayor and the team at the rec department is doing. The scope of this committee is to determine how we can increase more activities, determine how we can increase participation, determine how we can better equipment and facilities, determine how to increase revenue, determine the capacity and standards of fields, gyms, and other facilities, review what we currently are offering, create a plan of action, and determine the new revenue streams and tax growth opportunities. Over the past few weeks, we reached out to Andy, and he brought some information along with him today. But there were some questions that were asked by this committee. A few of the questions were asked by a few members that are not here, but there are a few questions that were asked by Commissioner Alford and also, I believe, by Commissioner Blake as well. So at this time, I would like for Commissioner Alford to kind of ask those questions of you, and then we can kind of go through the reports and stuff that you brought. And then I have some questions as well from those other commissioners. And if we don't get into those, I'll ask them as well. So Coach Alford, or Commissioner Alford. And please make sure that your microphones are on when you're speaking.
I was just one big question was an update on the pickleball courts where I go by there every day, so I kind of got an eye on them. So give them kind of update where we're at, and are we ever going to do lights? Is that part of the grant procedure, or where?
We're just waiting for the weather to be right for. I've got the companies lined up and PO'd to finish the courts, put the, paint them, line them. Got the nets waiting to go up. Fence company ready to put the fence up just as soon as the weather breaks. So, lights, I haven't got to that point yet, but looking new budget coming up and see what we can do.
Would it not be more advisable rather than going for a frisbee court on the monies from the trust? I guess you could call it. Go for lights rather than a frisbee court,
Well, I
golf
actually
court, or whatever you want to call it.
I put in for the HCI grant for those courts for lights, and I didn't get that portion of it. I just got to build the courts. As far as the frisbee golf, it was something else for other people in the community, and it was also something to put out at the Elrod Park where we've got quite a bit of land. So, but
Do you have any idea on the lighting for the pickleball court?
the cost,
Cost-wise?
I
I think we did some figures last year, but we never moved
well, I
on
think
it.
last year, I think it was around 70 from Musco, but that was the Musco company, and that was LED lights. So I'll have to revisit that now with prices, but
Well, since it's probably the most popular up-and-coming sport in the whole county, I would think we need to expedite things on that as best we could. That's just my opinion, But, 'cause I see, well, right now you got it, the fence is down. The people that's playing pickleball on the courts that's there are having to chase probably through the fence.
well, yeah, I think our little portable had blown down, but we'll get it back up so they don't have to chase it. But
That's,
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Not so much, but I guess this will come up when we get to the hearings, but the cost that you charge for the rental of the parks during their tournament, what's your proposal on going up on those fees? Or your thoughts? We haven't gone up in quite some time, if I remember.
no, I can go up on it. Everything else has went up. So.
So that will come up, I'm sure, but that's all I have to.
Sorry, a couple questions that were sent in by Commissioner Collins was one is, and I guess that it's probably in this report.
It might be, but
and so if I can ask these questions of you, and then if you could kind of let us know. And one of them is there any enrollment data that you have regarding how many people are in the activities that we offer, and the other questions is the listing of all current sports activities that we currently offer in Bradley County, along with any potential activities that you in the rec department are looking to start in the future. I know that disc golf is one of them that you guys are hoping to get going, but are there any other ones that are looking at being started anytime soon?
The program numbers, I went back to 2018. I just picked a date. So, and they're actually in a little printout that I gave you there. And it breaks it down for our spring, which our spring sports are baseball and softball. Then you have the fall, which is baseball and softball. Your winter sports are basketball and cheerleading. And that kind of gives you an idea of where we're at. Then they have the one season there, the 2020, which was the COVID year, to where we actually had to combine spring and fall. That's why it's broke down that way. But currently, we kind of offer our sports, and it's roughly based on the school year. That because when school is out, we have less participation. They tend to show up a little bit less for practicing games when school's not in. So, I actually Bartley Norton, who is on my rec board, has said something about volleyball, which I would be open to. The only issues I have with other sports like that is I don't have facilities for them. You know, our basketball league is played within the elementary school's gyms. So to add something like that, I would have to have cooperation with the schools so we could have gyms to play it, and then determine where we would fit that in within the sports that we do have, where it doesn't affect. I don't want a girl to have to choose between playing basketball or volleyball because they're falling in the same season. And of course, that would also be difficult with the gym availability. So, but he's brought that up, and you know, we can look into that. I don't know that programs wise would fall under such things as, you know, walking trails, and that was one thing that I was kind of leaning towards with the disc golf at Elrod. A lot of room out there. I'd like to get into some walking trails at all the parks, but that's not really a program, but that's something I would like to see eventually at all our parks. We haven't done football in several years. We've got 2 football leagues within the community now, and when they started, we kind of fell off numbers wise. I don't see them going anywhere right now, but so.
Do you have any plans to offer any other sports, such as, I know you said volleyball and disc golf and things like that. Do you have any other plans to offer any sports such as soccer or volleyball is another example, but anything like soccer or swimming or anything like that?
We've never done soccer. There is a soccer league in town, the Greater Cleveland Soccer Association. They've always kind of done that. Facilities wise would be the swimming issue. I mean, we could feasibly do some soccer, or I've thought about trying flag football, because we have some facilities that we could do that on. The indoor facilities will really struggle because, you know, that kind of knocks us out of some of those sports. But I have thought about maybe trying to do a fall flag football, or we could try little kid soccer. But that's also would be right in the middle of the time that you have 2 football leagues that do a flag football and the Greater Soccer Association that's doing soccer too.
Yeah, I'm involved in, as you know, baseball. I just noticed like there was a 200 kid, I guess, increase in the spring of 22, and that's 200 over pre-COVID back spring 18. Did you guys, and there's also an increase in the fall. Did you guys do anything different this year to kind of bring more kids in?
I guess the way we try to advertise now, we more billboards, more social media, and that could have something to do with it. It could be that people were still wanting to get outside. Yeah, we of course our population's increasing too. So yeah, that 1,200 last spring was a surprise to us. We were scrambling to get more uniforms ordered.
Another question that Commissioner Collins had was, do you have any vision ideas regarding plans or goals over the next 5 or 10 years to where you and the mayor's office, where you guys would like to see our Parks and Rec system be at, or what other sports other than the disc golf and the things that you mentioned here today in your plan is the future plans of disc golf, Miracle League, walking trails, and fitness courts. Are there any other plans or goals when it comes to fields, quality of fields, lighting at different fields, or availability of other opportunities within the rec department?
Well, I mean, the maintenance of the fields is always a concern for us. We play from March till the 1st of November most of the time, so you're always trying to keep your fields playable. That's always a constant cost. So.
And let me preface that question too, or the question that was asked by saying is due to the scope, continuing with the scope of what this committee is looking at is the plan of actions for growing over the next 10 years. And is that this committee wants your, and when we talked about creating this committee, is that we want your input, the rec department's input, the mayor's office's input, and also the recreation board's input as much as possible for this committee to be able to work with you guys, not work against you or work at you, but work with you to be able to determine what that plan and that goal and that vision is. Because as we all know, and we've talked so much over the past year and multiple years previously, is that Cleveland and Bradley County are growing, and that people are coming into this community enormously every single day, and over each month and each year, and more students are growing. I mean, we have created an ad hoc committee for the county commission to look at school growth, to determine if we need more schools and how we can be more of a participant, and how we can grow our schools. On that same note is that when we have more children and more things come to Bradley County, we also will have more offerings. And like Mr. Kyle mentioned, a 200-person growth over a year's time, with players playing baseball. I envision that number is going to continue to grow, and that we will have to continue to see more opportunities like that. So that's I believe where his question comes from, is where is that plan or goals, kind of what you guys have in mind for the future?
Well, I would say right now we have enough fields, and then I know I think you mentioned this to me a while back, the possibility of the lights at Elrod. So there's 4 more fields, and that's going to help us tremendously, whether it's just practice schedule or eventually needing those more fields for games. Of course, those fields are bigger than all my other fields. Most of my fields are youth size. Those are larger fields, so you can play, from 4 years up to 15 or 16 on those fields. Now, if you're talking tournaments, then I guess to kind of answer your question about fields, you're going to be competing with the Daltons, who have all turf fields. And as far as lights, we're to a point now to where eventually we're going to have to start retrofitting our lights at Bradley North or Blue Springs also, because they're 20 plus years old. I'm not sure when the lights went in at Blue Springs. I know Bradley North's probably around 2000, 2001. So they're 20 years old. And I'd say Blue Springs are pretty close to the same age, not sure, but you're having problems finding parts and fixing those style of lights, and everything now is going to LEDs, which are more of a upfront cost, but you kind of make your money back, so to speak, in 20 plus years on energy costs and parts and stuff like that.
Hey, quick question on you mentioned the Dalton, and I've been down there a lot. How do they, I think I know the answer to this, how do they get their funding to turf all their fields and to do their upgrades? Because there's some sort of fee that they have. I believe it comes from the dump that they get a certain percentage of or whatever, and they're allowed to put that into the recreation facilities, and that's how that's done. I may be wrong.
I'm unaware of how they've come up with those funds, and I'm sure that they have some sort of deal for turf down there.
I think that would be definitely a question that I think that I have heard a lot when this committee was created, and talking about what things could be beneficial for our kids and for our players and for our facilities, is looking into the AstroTurf and seeing what the cost of it is, what it would take to do, and looking at different funding for it, like you mentioned. Something that I would love for us to look at is to look at some of those facilities that do have AstroTurf, like you've mentioned, Dalton, and if before our next meeting, to kind of speak with their recreation department and kind of see what they do. What is the cost of it? What's the maintenance of it cost, and that kind of stuff. Because I think that is something that, not saying that we can do everything and anything, and that's definitely not what I'm saying, but I think that all opportunities have to be placed on the table to see what it would take. And that is one of the other questions that I do have that came in from Commissioner Collins, What grants have you currently applied for different things? What grants are you hoping to apply for in the near future? And have you applied for major grants in the past that I guess are, and his question was outside of the HCI committee, outside grants and opportunities. We know that the sheriff's department just hired a grant writer. I know that we have a grant writer that works with Bradley County as well. And kind of what grants have we been doing or have gotten, and kind of where, or is all of your funding just coming from the budget of the county, I guess?
Since I've been here, the only grants that I've applied for have been the HCI grants. I guess the last outside grant that Parks and Rec received was when we did the grant for Elrod. That was when Paul was still here. That was what, 06 or 07, Mayor? Yeah. Yeah, they did that one, and that was in around 01, like I said.
Does the Parks and Rec department have a listing or a place that they can go and visit, whether it's online or whatever, that shows them all the grants that are available for Parks and Rec and sports and things like that?
I'm sure there is, through the parks, through those same grants that they got for those particular parks.
I think that would be another thing that it would be definitely beneficial for one, not just for our Parks and Rec department, but also for our community. Whether it's whether you look at any type of grant, whether it's a 90-10 or a 50-50 or 100% grant, whatever it is, those type of investments to where we can get funding from outside of the taxpayers, I think is always a great opportunity for us to be able to help and grow our community.
Josh, I've had a nonprofit before, and I know Andy, as far as sitting down and writing a grant, you and Tommy are too busy to sit down and write a grant, right? I mean, is there somebody that we could, I don't know, part-time, bring in somebody that could just write it or even volunteer to do that? Because I'm sure there's, and you know this too, there's tons of grants out there that people are wanting to give. And especially if we built 2 parks with it, with outside grant, then I feel like we could do some damage as far as turf and lights and stuff like that with outside grants if we had somebody to write those and just apply for a bunch of them. To me, just seems like, I don't know what you think, but a good idea if we could do that. We don't have any money to pay, right? I mean, so it's like, do we find somebody who could volunteer? Maybe a grant writer at Lee that would volunteer, at Cleveland State that would jump in and do something like that. We've used those people before in the past when we had the refuge, and they're really good at what they do, and they just go and apply for a bunch of grants for you, and it works out. So you don't have to do all the legwork on filling out paperwork and typing up stories and everything else like they would.
I would be more than happy to speak with people that do those things.
I wanted to revisit the AstroTurfs. I know you probably don't have it, but it would be nice to go back and look at how many games, tournaments, what have you, weren't able to be played because the fields were not playable. And if you'll do the what if here, if we did have AstroTurf that they were playable. Sometimes storms that come through are so bad that even AstroTurf won't allow you. But most, from my experience in playing all that, 30 minutes after, maybe an hour after a storm comes through, you can be back out there playing. So, and there's the economic impact on that is because, again, I did the whole travel ball thing. Once they call a tournament, then you pack up and go back home and cancel out of the hotel and don't eat and all that kind of stuff. So there's that piece of it. But I think with the AstroTurf, it does provide somewhat of a quasi ROI. We invest a certain amount of money. There's something we can calculate that it's going to be a positive economic impact on us, maybe directly or indirectly. Also, with respects to it, AstroTurfs, I don't see where we can do. How many fields you have? I mean, I know you got 3 parks.
Let's see, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
you would obviously
We got
go,
about 21
you would
fields.
go with the fields that would probably benefit you the most, you know, as far as
Yeah.
being able to play for. So, 3 to 5 year phase in of
Mm-hmm.
AstroTurfs is probably the most feasible way. In other words, not all of them at one time,
Yeah.
but just 2 fields here and so forth, or a year or something like that.
Yeah, 4-field complex like Urbane baseball, Urbane softball, Bradley North.
Whatever you
yeah.
think. I mean, if you had one AstroTurf over here at Bradley North and one over at Urbane, or all at Urbane,
Yeah.
whatever you think's best, because then the teams, and I speak from my experience, people were playing at 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock in the morning to get the games in because the fields were available after the storm. So that's something I hope that we concentrate on because of the ROI on it, and I think it would put us in a position to, quote unquote, compete with Athens and Dalton. That's their selling point, and North Atlanta,
Yeah.
big one down there. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
I do have one other question. How many ball courts do we currently have under Bradley
have-
County?
We have 2 and 2 under construction, just
So-
waiting to be painted.
So
We'll
2.
have 4 at the county park beside the YMCA.
Okay. And we're waiting on fencing and lights and all that kind of paint and
We're
all
waiting
that.
on the surface, fence, and then eventually light.
Eventually lights. Is there any plans to have pickleball tournaments out there that are, you know, pay-in tournaments and have pickleball, teams or events or whatever it might be? Leagues, pickleball
I've been
leagues.
contacted by some people in the community that are pretty big in it. Haven't gone that way with it yet.
That are not just for
Yeah.
children, but for all
This is,
ages.
I mean, the best of my knowledge, it's all adults.
Yeah.
To retirees, really. That's who I see mostly.
It's
out
a
there,
big
so.
Blake Kondo. I don't know if he's contacted you, but he's over the pickleball league,
Yeah.
and they're bringing in. I think he said, I think maybe March or something like that. There'll be 300 pickleball players. So I mean, he would probably pay too to.
And I'm think that Tinsley is fixing to add some new
Right.
courts there too.
Yeah.
So I mean, I don't know how many exactly they have right now. I've run by it every now and again.
And do you rent those pickleball, like once the
Um,
pickleball courts are constructed, do you have plans to rent those pickleball
I
courts
just-
out to tournaments, or
no,
is
no.
it just free use? Or
I just did free use. It's, you have some general court rules about it's not hogging the courts, but,
Sure.
first come, first serve, and, rotating after an hour or something. When it first started, it was more recreation for that group of people, and now it's, with Tinsley adding all those courts, getting a little bit growing outside of that now.
Oh, yeah.
So.
I'll throw this out here because Mila knows that I'll talk about it eventually. But you mentioned swimming. My son swims in a year-round swim league here in Cleveland. It's the Cleveland Aqua Tigers. They've got about 140 swimmers that swim, I guess, on a year-round basis. Probably 300 total swimmers with the summer league. Bradley High School and Walker Valley High School does not have a swim team. And the reason they don't have a swim team is because they don't have a place to swim. Cleveland High School has a swim team and is able to swim at the Denning Center, which is probably, if anything ever happened at the Denning Center, and a permit had to be pulled, then the Denning Center probably would not be able to be used anymore. And so, with the pools you have in the city, Tinsley, kind of struggles to open every year. It's been around for a long time. I know it was there before I was a kid when I was swimming over there. So I know how old I am and how long it's been there. And so really just kind of want to get the committee's opinion on the thought of an aquatic center somewhere. I know Dalton, I think, is building their third. They've got one at Dalton High School, and then they've got another, and they're building one right beside the convention center now. Anytime you bring in a swim event, especially a year-round swim event, you're bringing in anywhere from 1,200 swimmers from Alabama, Georgia, Northern Tennessee, Kentucky, North Carolina. So 1,200 swimmers equates probably to about 2,400 if they just brought one parent. that would be in, Cleveland, Tennessee, Bradley County, using our hotels, eating our food, increasing the tax revenue that we get. And so really just the committee, has anybody ever thought of that, what that would look like? I know I've been down to Calhoun, Georgia for a swim meet, and it was $3.8 million for them to build an aquatic center back in 2011. We go with inflation, probably 6 million now to build one, but that's a 7-lane aquatic center with diving boards and a workout facility. And one of the things that they did with that is they charged the community $30 a month. They put a little small workout facility in there, and they have a free swim during the day. So it's a way to bring in some income for that. But I think one of the things in my mind in dealing with businesses and stuff like that, trying to attract businesses to Bradley County, and what the chamber does and what the mayor does is, some of these executives have kids that swim, and we don't have in the county a great place for that to happen. We don't have an indoor facility for that to happen. We've got a ton of acreage on the back of Bradley North over there that could host or hold a aquatic center. So I guess I want to throw that out there. That's maybe part of the reason that I definitely wanted to be on here, because I wanted to get that conversation started and see if there's anything we can do, whether it be a 3-year, 5-year, 10-year plan to do that, and then kind of go from there. So I'll throw that out.
Thank you, Mr. Kyle. I know that growing up outside of Bradley County in Atlanta, that swim and dive was a very big sports program. Neighborhoods, growing up where I lived, your neighborhoods would compete against other neighborhoods. That these neighborhoods would have these pools and these abilities. And I actually, while I don't look at it like it now, I was actually a swimmer when I was about 9, 10, 11, all the way through high school. To about my 9th or 10th grade year, I swam for Appalachian Farms, where I grew up. And it was a great thing. And I think that those are the type of ideas and thoughts that was my hope and my goal. And I think the chairman, Chairman Cry's hope and goal as well, that these thoughts and these type of ideas would be able to come out and be able to be spoken about, and hopefully be able to look at what the financial cost of it is, but also what the financial impact of what it could be for our community, and not just financially, but what it would also bring to our community when trying to bring in jobs and bring in new facilities and manufacturing and things like that. Just how the Greenway was for many, many years, and that we've always heard, and that has been championed not just by Bradley County, but also by the city of Cleveland as well. Commissioner Alford, do you have any other questions or anything, or Commissioner Blake?
I was just looking at, get away from the swimming a minute. It sounds like a good plan. But I'm more into right now, looking at what we're doing right now as far as tournaments and things and contracts, how we make money, where we're losing money, or so forth and so on. Can you give me an estimate on how much it costs for a tournament to be held at Bradley North on a weekend? What was it costing the county?
It costs us, it would cost us concession employees, stocking the concession stands, turning the lights on, chalking the fields. Most of the tournaments that we have that come in here these days are at max 2-day tournaments. So typically don't have a lot of overtime. Of course, we roll that into the tournament directors to pay. So I guess that would be our biggest cost, those factors. Mainly concession workers and stocking the concession stand. Yeah.
Labor,
Mm-hmm.
chalk and the lights.
Yeah. I
But
mean,
we
the
don't
chalk's
have
not
you
that
don't
bad.
have an idea on what it would, don't have an idea on what it does
Like a
cost
dollar
us.
figure.
No, not off the top of my head, figuring on how much it costs to run the lights on a Saturday night or I can tell you how much it might cost, or I can get back to you how much it costs in labor, say, you know, to have,
So normal tournament coming in there on a weekend, what's normally they charge per team?
I don't, it would depend on what organization's running it.
Well, we know who runs most 90% of them.
He's not gonna run 90% of them anymore.
Well, I know, but in the past.
Well, that particular organization didn't charge a team fee for the younger groups. They let them in for free. And you may charge your 11 to 16-year-olds. He was probably charging them $300 or $400.
Actually, he had went down, it was 275, because I had a 15-year-old team, so when we come to Cleveland, it was 275 to play for 2 days.
The way a lot of them look at it is they're going to charge the team what it's going to cost to pay the umpires. That's how they kind of base that. What will it cost for me to put umpires on the field for 3 or 4 games, the guaranteed games they give them?
But they also sell merchandise and apparel and
Charge
Parking.
gate.
And charge.
Charge gate. Well, charge gate. They don't really have parking. They charge gate. So that's where they made their money. But now they're also having to pay out for your gatekeepers and your umpire. Your umpire is your biggest cost, if you can find enough, which is always fun.
Andy, if you don't mind, Commissioner Alford, Andy, if I wanted to create a baseball tournament and bring teams in for 2 days, what would I have to pay the county? What would my contract be? What would it cost me to be able to use the fields for 2 days?
For 2 days, I charge a fee per field. For one part, which is about 4 fields, for 2 days, off the top of my head, I believe was 4 or 5. I think it's 400 plus overtime, because you'd have an overtime fee bringing to come in that night, get it ready for the next day.
So
$400 or $500 plus overtime.
$400 a field
No. For a 4-field complex.
for 1 day or for 2 days?
That's 2 days.
So 200 or $250.
If I do a one day softball tournament in one part, 300. So
Well, and then do we make the money off the concession stands, or does the tournament?
we make the concession stand. I got to rewrite all that too.
So for a 1 day softball tournament, just so I have my numbers right, are $300 for a 1 day for 4 fields.
Like 75 a field. Per
Yeah.
day.
Okay. And how many games can be played on? Is that a time limit? Is that from 8 o'clock and 7 o'clock in the morning, 5 a.m.? When does that start?
Most of them at the earliest would start at 8.
And when do they run to if they have
Well,
lights on the field?
They say the last game's going to start at 10 or 10:30, but
At night?
yeah, how far they get behind is a different story.
So let's say 14 hours a day. Say around 14 hours, and it's $75 a field for 14 hours. Games last an hour and a half.
Well, some of them will schedule them every hour on the hour, which is impossible, but that's how they'll schedule it.
Yeah, just an hour.
Depends on the age.
Older kids are hour.
Yeah, you may have a 5 and 6 or 7, 8-year-old game that's an hour. Then you may have a 11, 12 to 14 through 16s. They're giving them an hour and a half.
So $75 a day. Divide that by 14 hours is $5 an hour that someone's paying for a field. Would be about average. Less than minimum wage to be able to cover. And I'm just wanting to look at all things here, and then the concession starts. So we don't get the gate fee. That's the tournament gets the gate fee.
Yeah.
Is that how it normally is at all tournaments and all teams?
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, if I may also, until we do get where we can have more predictability on the playing of the fields, when we get into the budget and all that, is through this committee, is them also putting a non-refundable deposit. We've talked about that in the past, and you didn't think it was the right thing to do, but I've kind of looked at some of the others. They do require a deposit. So tournament director, not huge, but has, you know, in the game, if you want to call it that, but they give you a deposit secure that weekend. And if it doesn't make because of the number of teams or for whatever reason, it's non-refundable. Not a large amount, but I do think we do need to implement. And I think he said would go up on the fees in the next budget or the spring, whatever.
Yeah, I definitely think that it's something to look at. I mean, as the cost of inflation goes up, I'm sure the cost of your lights have gone up, the cost of your chalk has gone up, the cost of your food at your concessions has probably tripled. I think that it definitely is something for us to look at and talk at and see. And obviously, at the end of the day, this is the determination, I believe, of you and your department and mayor's office to see this. But I think that for us, our hope and our goal is to be able to kind of give some thoughts and ideas of what what other places are doing, what is Athens doing, or Chattanooga, or Dalton, or other areas that are the size of this with the size tournaments that we're hoping to bring into it. Do you have a question?
Yeah, I would
Commissioner
just
Alford?
comment, I guess, more or less. Normally, how many teams on a weekend? Usually it averages 40, 50, 60, 70, 80 teams coming in. As many as 90 I've heard in the past.
Yeah, those were some of the bigger ones. I would say,
So
So
you
the-
figuring 90 teams at the rate that we're charging, he's paying his referees out of the entrance fee that's supposedly. So you look at 90 teams coming in there, you count $10 a head at the gate. How much money somebody's making off these tournaments, basically. Pretty good chunk of money. So I think, Chairman, we need to really look at our contract that we have with these tournaments. We need to look at a contract, revisit the contract. We have a one-page contract?
we have a user agreement.
User agreement, but I think we need to revamp that to some type of a contract. I know Athens has a very good one. I've seen it before. Pretty extensive and very, very detailed, you might say. So I would suggest that we get a copy of theirs.
Is that something that we could look at before our next meeting of trying to look at getting a contract from Athens and looking at what our user agreement is, and to do a comparison to kind of see what other people in our areas are charging, what's in their contract, to make sure that we are, kind of having the same kind of guidelines that also fit the mold of what Bradley County is and what we want to do, but also see what other people are doing as well.
I think, to be fair, I'm probably the one that's involved in this the most now, since I've got a select baseball team. Is that, we have to be careful not to price ourselves out of getting tournaments in, and I don't know how many other tournaments or directors come to Bradley County. Andy, you can answer that. I think I know the answer to that, but I don't, and it's not because of, I don't think people ask. I mean, there's a lot of competition that we have field-wise, and if a tournament director is going to run a tournament, he wants to know that he can finish that tournament without weather delays or anything like that, and so that's the need for turf. Once we got the turf, we could charge a lot more. Now we're with grass, or dirt in fields and grass, so if we have rain, if I'm a tournament director, I'm probably trying to find somewhere else to go that I can maybe skirt around the rain or at least play afterwards. So I think that charging more, yes, but I also think that we just need to be careful to realize that we don't have the facilities yet that a lot of other surrounding areas do. And, I played in a lot of Billy's tournaments, and there's a lot of them, including the last one, that we played one game and then it rained and we were done for the rest of the weekend, right? So, I didn't get my fee back, and my fee was $225, so I didn't get that back. So he got to keep that, understanding that, that's what I signed up for. But I think before we go saying we want to charge this or do that, is we need to make sure that, we're charging what is a comparable facility to ours, or we just won't get any people coming and playing tournaments. And I got to be honest, we travel so much that, playing in Cleveland in the fall is a lot of fun for us because we can stay close to the house. But that's, it's a great revenue boost for the director. I know that because I've thought about seeing if I could put on a team as a fundraiser or put on a tournament for a fundraiser. But we offer our facilities, but we just need to make sure we're offering it for the right amount.
I totally agree with that as well. I think that tournaments and baseball, softball, pickleball, whatever ball you want to play, I think tournaments are moving so much further and are growing in such a rapid pace. And we have such great facilities, whether it's hotels, restaurants, the distance and the locations between Nashville and Knoxville and Chattanooga and Atlanta, that this area could be really great. And I do agree with you. I think that facilities are an issue with that. We want tournaments here. It's not that we don't want people to come in and have tournaments here. We don't want, I've heard that personally, that, it is not for us to try to sit here and say we don't want a certain person or certain peoples or certain tournaments or whatever it might be. We want tournaments in Bradley County. I truly believe that. But I also think that we also want to look at and say, how can we better equip those fields, better equip our stuff that we have, to where we can increase the cost of what it would be, because we have those lights, we have that turf, we have those facilities available that are the best, because I truly believe that everyone up here does want to have the best for our kids and for the people who come into our community and see it. I think that anytime we have people who are from out of town that come in and play sports in our area, whether they go to Walker Valley or they go to Bradley, when they walk onto those fields and they come and play a football game at Walker Valley or at Bradley, they say that, that's the nicest turf in Tennessee. That's the nicest facilities in Tennessee. And I think that we all would want that from a high school level, a middle school level, elementary, all the way into Parks and Rec for everyone. So does anyone else have any questions?
One more.
Yes, sir.
Understand the gentleman that usually puts on all tournaments is going to be out of business to some degree. All right, what's the plans for this coming spring when we start our tournaments again? Are they booked, or
Yeah,
how's that working now?
I gave you a sheet with dates on it.
Yeah, I saw
Um,
that.
The green ones are the only open dates. So there's about 5 different organizations that have.
That's what I'd like to know, who those organizations
Okay.
are that's running all these different tournaments. Who's the directors?
The NSA and the USFA are gentlemen from Knoxville area. The Net Elite is actually, that's baseball. Net Elite's baseball. That's Jason Sewell, a local guy. But the organization, Net Elite's from Northeast Tennessee. USA Softball is a new one. It's a lady in Chattanooga, I believe. And Connect Sports, they have a big tournament every November. It's softball, and they're playing from Dalton to here. And ISA is the local group.
But is there a tournament person at the NSA? Who's in charge of that?
It's National Softball Association, and
Or
they have
any of these?
regional directors or state directors that put the tournaments on, and then they are affiliated with that particular association. Whether it's for the sanction fees for the teams or the insurance, the umpire associations that they use, all that stuff.
So they're the director, basically.
They're like some of them have state directors, some of them are like a East Tennessee state director, and they got a West Tennessee. It's just broke down like that.
Who actually comes in and directs the tournament? I guess is what point I'm trying to get to.
NSA's James Richards is his name.
What is that, please?
James Richards.
Oh, okay. How about the ISA?
ISA is, it's actually Billy's son that they've got coming in to do his tournament. Yeah.
How far do you normally travel when you go to tournaments with your kids?
We'll go to, where did we play at? We played at Knoxville a couple times and Bristol. If it's over, yeah. And eat at the restaurant. I don't know, and this is just an idea to throw out. I mean, maybe we don't have the staff to do it, but why aren't we putting on select tournaments? And then we don't have to charge. I mean, we get the fields for free. We get to collect the fees and kind of go from there. And listen, I know staffing, right? And I know what it takes to run one of those things. But you know, if we're doing a Bradley County Invitational, I'm sure everybody knows about us from softball tournaments and baseball tournaments. I would definitely come and do it. I mean, is there any thought that we could do something like that?
Well, my biggest concern is staffing, and the umpires is by far the most difficult issue you're going to have.
I know that there was a lot of umpires in the ISA that left and went down to Net Elite or went to Dalton because they were getting free New Balance shoes and getting paid a good chunk and stuff like that for going to do it, and really good umpires. You know, if we up the price because we're making money on it to pay the umpires, we could attract some umpires because they're going to come where the money's at. And so if we're getting the funds in from the gate and we're collecting the team fees, and then we're collecting the concession stand, we can maybe pay a little more for the umpires to come up. And I don't know if we've got any kind of connection to an umpire association, to where we could say, hey, here's what we're doing, and then say this is what we're paying, and maybe bring some people in. So
Well, I can answer that a little bit because I umpire. I'm a high school umpire out of the Athens Association that covers this area, and when it comes to summer ball or fall ball, I'd say we've probably got 30 guys in our association. Out of those 30 guys, I'm one of the few that actually umpires all summer into the fall. I mean, they do their high school stuff, and then they're either doing other sports or they're done. It's getting harder and harder and harder to get officials for anything. We're in a pretty good place, say, in basketball, and then our basketball officials are all grown-ups. My rec ball umpires are kids, and you couldn't use those guys for a select tournament, so that would be difficult. But it's just that would be the biggest issue, being able to get umpires.
I know that umpires are a hard thing. I mean, we've seen that even at the high school level. Something to kind of think about for next time, and hopefully we'll have our next meeting sometime middle to end of January, is where do we get our umpires from? We have two really great colleges right here with Lee University and Cleveland State, that have thousands of kids that go to their schools. What something to look at next time I really would like us to talk about is what does it take to train an umpire, the cost to take it to get your umpire license, whatever it is to become an umpire, and if these universities and high schools, especially baseball players, football players, things like that, basketball players here locally, to be able to offer them jobs, to be able to umpire some of these.
I'll answer it right now if you want me to.
Sure, yeah.
What does it take? Showing up.
Okay.
As far as training, we try to do some umpire camps. I know Greg Guerin, who assigns our officials for basketball, he tries to do meetings and camps and stuff like that. Now that's also an issue, getting guys to show up. But the biggest part of finding an official is finding somebody that's willing to do it.
Yeah.
And we do have students from Lee and Cleveland State that do some of our sports, whether it's baseball or basketball or softball. But it takes kind of a special person to go out there and do that.
Yeah.
And they're hard to find.
Yeah.
But it doesn't take anything. There's nothing required. Come over to the office, sign up, and we'll put you to work. And now, one note on the tournament umpires, and this is also would be an issue for us as far as getting those umpires. A lot of those places, Jamie, that you're going to and playing in, or even the places that I go umpire at, they'll pay cash to an umpire. And we can't do that. We're not going to do that. And so you tell, and we've lost umpires in our rec leagues that say, well, I don't have to work your rec ball anymore with the chance that I might get 1099 when I can go down to Dalton and I can umpire just on Saturday and make twice as much as what I would make working Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday up here. So that would also be an issue with officials.
So I guess to that, just thinking business minded, if somebody were to say, hey, or maybe there's somebody out there that could start like an umpire deal, you pay them by check, and then they go cash and pay their umpires with cash. I mean, I don't want to say an association because this person would have to be willing to, I guess get 1099 as well. But for the amount of money and the amount of tournaments that we would put on, having to, if there's 3 a year, is it that much, or do you partner with ISA and get their umpires and you pay Ryan Knight to distribute the cash out to their umpires and you go from there? Now, it's just, there's a couple of different options we could go with there, but yeah, I get it. I'm just looking at a way that's a huge revenue stream that we could take advantage of if we could figure that part out.
I understand. I just point out that's always going to be the
biggest
hurdle to get over is getting those officials.
Does anybody have any more questions?
The officials, they're coming up from all over the place. The Connect tournament, the big softball tournament at the end of the year, where they're playing from Dalton to here, they're bringing them in from the Carolinas. They're coming in from all over the place. So that's what they're having to, when they have that many teams in and they got to get that many umpires, they're just going wherever they can to get them. So.
Any other questions? Well, I want to say thank you for all of you guys being here today, for Commissioner Alford being here, Commissioner Blake, Mayor Davis, thank you for joining us today as well. Thank you to Andy for being here, answering a bunch of our questions and thoughts today. I think that this today was a great first meeting to really kind of see all the thoughts and all the ideas, and I hope that we will have another meeting here in the next coming weeks. We will schedule that and get that out to everybody. But my hope and my goal leaving here today is that, and something that I am definitely excited about and thankful for, is that there are a lot of great ideas, and that every person who, and I know there are people who are not here, who are not able to be here today, but I do know them personally. And I know that where their heart is for recreation, and I know where they want to see us be and where they want to see us grow to, and that truly believes that, like I do, and like the rest of us up here do believe, that this is one department that we have a lot of great departments all throughout Bradley County, and a lot of departments and a lot of things affect everyone what we do in government. But the recreation department is one of the departments that really affects our children, and it affects our kids, and it gives them the ability to learn and grow. It teaches them more than just athletics. It teaches them about respect and teamwork, and it teaches them about community and building friendships, and really helps. And And so I think that that is why this committee is so important, and why your department is so important, because it not just doesn't affect everyone in this community. It really truly does affect. It does, but it really truly affects our children and the next generation of people living in Bradley County. And so thank you all for being here today. If you have any questions, any of the committee members have any questions for Andy or for the mayor before our next meeting, you can send those in to me or to Lori, and then we will get those and we will work on our agenda for next time. If there are any,
One other question.
yes, sir.
Who writes the, I noticed the city recreation department gets a lot of grants. Who does theirs, you know?
I do not. Do not.
Oh, they're building all these new pickleball courts with grants, I think. A lot of other stuff, so. The grant facilities for recreation, there's thousands of them out there. We just
Yeah.
need to really look at trying to get into some.
I think that's
Thank you.
something that we can look at next time and talk about more next time is getting into the funding of the opportunities for those grants, because I think that is where we can really see our growth take off for a lot of this. So any other questions, comments? With that, we will adjourn.